So here's a question for you. Did you know that the guy who, seems to be on every social media feed screaming at you to stop watching Netflix and start hustling,
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about.
right? That guy actually started his career, like dusting bottles of Pinot Noir in a pretty standard New Jersey liquor store.
It's a jarring image when you put it that way, isn't it?
It's a very strange trajectory. I mean, you go from selling booze in the suburbs to becoming this global avatar for the grind.
For hustle culture.
Yeah. And now he's advising Fortune 500 CEOs and, selling NFTs for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite track.
Well, that's the paradox of Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Because if you only know him from, say, a 30-second Instagram reel where he's dropping F-bombs and telling you to wake up at 5 a.m.
Which is how most people know.
It is, and you get this caricature, you see the hustle guy, but if you actually ignore the volume, and I mean the literal volume of his voice, and look at the P&L statements, you see a very, very different operator.
And that is exactly why I wanted to do this deep dive today. Because I'll be honest, sometimes I see his clips and I just feel tired.
Right.
I feel a little bit scolded. But then I look at the businesses, VaynerMedia, Resi, Empathy Wines, and I realize there's this massive engine under the hood.
A huge one.
So I want to know how that engine was built. I don't really want the motivational quotes today. I want the mechanics. How did he actually make the money before he started telling everyone else how to make theirs?
That is absolutely the right question to ask, because the whole motivational speaking thing, that didn't come first. That was, in a lot of ways, the victory lap.
A byproduct.
The byproduct, exactly. To really understand the Vaynerchuk machine, we have to strip away the Gary V persona and look at Gary Vaynerchuk, the merchant, the guy who sells stuff.
Okay.
So today we're going to track his path all the way from a Soviet immigrant upbringing to building a $60 million wine empire, and then pivoting to a media holding company that actually rivals the legacy agencies on Madison Avenue.
And we have a ton of source material to get through. We've got the biographies, the financial reports from his big company exits, the timelines of all his media properties. It's a lot.
It is.
But before we get into the chronological story, what's the through line? Is there like a grand unified theory of Gary Vaynerchuk? What's the one idea that connects it all?
There is, and it's surprisingly simple. If you look closely at every single venture, and I mean everything, from the liquor store to the ad agency to the NFTs, it all comes down to one single concept: attention arbitrage.
Okay, stop there. Attention arbitrage. That sounds like some marketing jargon that an agency invents so they can charge their clients double. What does that actually mean in the real world?
It sounds fancy, I know, but it's actually dirt simple. It just means spotting where people are spending their time, their attention, before the rest of the market realizes it.
Okay.
And therefore, before the price of advertising on that platform goes through the roof, it's buying attention for pennies on the dollar.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. In 1996, that underpriced attention was email. In 2000, it was Google AdWords. In 2006, it was YouTube. More recently, in 2020, it was TikTok. He doesn't build the platforms himself. He just exploits the fact that big companies are always too slow to move their money to where the eyeballs actually are.
So he's basically a day trader, but instead of trading stocks, he's trading eyeballs.
That is literally the title of his 2024 book, Day Trading Attention. But yes, that is the mechanic. That's the whole game. And to see how he first learned that, we have to go way, way back. Before the internet, we have to go to Babrusk.
Which is in modern-day Belarus.
Correct. Born Gennady Alexandrovich Vaynerchuk in 1975, Soviet Union. And this is really not a silver spoon story.
Not at all.
The family came to the U.S. in 1978 through a refugee resettlement program. He was only 3 years old. They arrived with basically nothing.
And I think we hear immigrant story so often that we kind of glaze over. It becomes a bit of a cliche in these business biographies. But we need to contextualize this. We're talking about a studio apartment in Queens with, 8 family members? Something like that?
Right. It was incredibly crowded. And then they moved to Edison, New Jersey. And this part is key because he wasn't insulated. He wasn't inside playing video games. He was on the streets selling things.
The classic kid businesses.
The classic cliches, yeah. Baseball cards, lemonade stands. But he took them to an absolute extreme. There's a story that's often told about him running multiple lemonade stands at the same time across the neighborhood and managing his friends as employees.
So he was franchising.
He was franchising lemonade at 7 years old. He was learning about profit margins and scaling before he was even 10.
But the real business education, the one that really sets the foundation, that starts when he's 14. That's when he gets dragged into the family business.
Shoppers Discount Liquors.
Ah, Not exactly a branding masterpiece, is it?
Mm-mm. No, it sounds like the place you go to buy the giant plastic jugs of vodka.
Exactly.
And it was a volume business. His dad, Sasha, ran a very tight ship. Gary started out, and this is true, by bagging ice in the basement for $2 an hour in tips.
Bagging ice.
Bagging ice, it's pure manual labor. But eventually, he gets promoted, he moves up to the sales floor, and this is where that attention arbitrage instinct first kicks in, even though he didn't have a name for it yet.
How so?
Well, he started watching the customers. And he realized that people weren't just buying liquid in a bottle, they were buying a story. They were buying prestige or recommendation or feeling.
So he started studying?
He started devouring information. He read every issue of Wine Spectator magazine. He wasn't just reading it, he was memorizing the ratings, the reviews, the scores.
Learning the data.
Exactly, the data.
Yeah.
So when a customer would walk in looking for some specific $100 bottle of Cabernet, he could walk up and say, hey, I know you like that profile, but this bottle over here got a 92 from Robert Parker, and it's half the price.
Ah, so he's building trust. He's not just upselling.
He's building immense trust. He's providing value first. But the real explosion, the thing that changes everything, that happens in 1998. He graduates from Mount Ida College with a management science degree, and he takes over the day-to-day operations of the store.
And 1998. I mean, we have to put ourselves in that time. The internet is basically a baby. Most people are still absolutely terrified to put their credit card information into a computer.
And that right there is the arbitrage. That fear, that slowness from everyone else, that's the opportunity. He looked at that behavior and said, people are going to buy wine this way, I'm sure of it.
So he made two big moves.
Two huge moves. First, he rebranded the store. He changed it from Shoppers Discount Liquors to Wine Library.
Which immediately sounds more authoritative, more premium.
Instantly. And then he launched winelibrary.com. He took the local liquor store online.
Okay, let's unpack this growth here, because the numbers, they're frankly absurd. The source notes all say he grew the business from $3 million a year to $60 million a year.
60. A 20x return.
Right. And you don't get that just by putting up a website. Plenty of people had websites in 1998 and went completely bust. What was he doing differently?
Okay, this is where we get into the real weeds of the tactics. And the first one, the one that built the foundation, was email.
Email.
Yeah, simple email. Back in 1998, spam filters weren't really a big thing. If you sent someone an email, they almost always opened it. Your open rates were like 80 or 90%. It was incredible.
Unthinkable today.
Completely. So he collected email addresses at the checkout counter, aggressively, and he started sending out daily emails with offers that were actually valuable, not just buy this, buy this. He'd write tasting notes, tell stories. He treated that email list like gold.
So he had a direct line to his customer that cost him basically $0 to use.
That's it, a free broadcast mechanism. But the bigger play, the one that really scaled the business nationally, was Google AdWords.
Ah, the early days of search ads.
The very early days. When Google first launched their ad platform, basically nobody was bidding on keywords for wine. The big established wine retailers were still spending millions of dollars on full-page ads in the New York Times and on billboards.
And Gary realized he could buy search terms.
He realized he could buy the term wine, or Cabernet Sauvignon, for pennies a click.
Pennies?
Literal pennies. For a nickel, maybe a dime, he could get a highly qualified buyer, someone who was actively at that very moment searching for wine to land directly on his website.
That's an incredible arbitrage.
He spent every single dollar he had on it. He milked that margin for years until the big guys, the big retailers, finally caught on and started bidding the price up. But by the time they finally showed up to the party, he had already built a loyal customer base of tens of thousands of people from all over the country.
It's fascinating. It wasn't that he was necessarily a better sommelier, though he was good. It was that he was a better media buyer.
That's it.
He just understood the plumbing of the internet better and earlier than his competitors.
Precisely. He was using the wine to fund his real education, which was learning how the internet worked. And that, of course, naturally leads us to 2006.
YouTube.
YouTube launches. It's new. It's weird. Nobody knows what to make of it.
And we get Wine Library TV. Or as he always called it, the Thunder Show.
The Thunder Show, that's right. He starts filming these episodes in the back of the store. He's wearing a New York Jets jersey. He's got a big plastic spit bucket. And he's just screaming about tannins and tasting notes. It was completely, totally unpolished.
And that was the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Because wine culture before this was, ascots and classical music in the background. It was designed to be exclusionary.
It was incredibly stuffy. He completely democratized it. He made it okay to not know everything as long as you're willing to taste and learn. He'd taste a wine and say it tasted like grass clippings or a dirt clod.
Things people can actually relate to.
Yes. But look at the work ethic here. This is what's really key. He didn't do, a season of 10 episodes and take a break.
Yeah.
He did 1,000 episodes. 1,000 daily for 5 straight years before he finally retired the show in 2011 to start a new one called The Daily Grape.
That level of consistency is it's staggering.
It is, and that's what he means when he talks about hustle. It wasn't just about working late. It was the relentless consistency of the output. He was building a relationship with his audience every single day.
And he was in the comments.
He was in every comment section, replying to everyone. This is really the community manager phase of his career. He realized, way before anyone else, that the brand wasn't your logo or your slogan. The brand was the conversation that was happening in the comments section.
Okay, so he builds this absolute beast. He's the king of wine on the internet. The business is doing $60 million a year. The family is set for life. Most people, 99.9% of people, would just ride that wave until retirement.
Right. They'd buy a boat, maybe open a second location in a different town, and just, chill out.
But Gary isn't driven by the wine. I think that's what becomes clear.
He's driven by the game. He saw that selling wine was just one application of his actual skill set. His real skill was generating and monetizing attention. So, in August of 2011, he does something incredible. He walks away.
That is a genuinely terrifying move, to walk away from the cash cow that you personally built from the ground up.
He stepped away from the day-to-day of the wine business to start Vaynermedia with his brother, AJ. And he did it because he saw the next great arbitrage opportunity.
Which was?
Social media for corporations.
Okay, let's look at Vaynermedia. Because back in, 2009, 2011, the idea of a social media agency usually just meant a couple of 20-year-old interns posting on a company's Facebook page. It wasn't a serious industry. How did he turn that into a powerhouse?
Well, he essentially applied the Wine Library TV model to Fortune 500 brands. He looked at the traditional agencies, the Ogilvies, the McCanns, and saw that they were all built on the TV commercial model.
A Mad Men model.
The Mad Men model, exactly. They would spend 6 months and $2 million to create one single perfect 30-second video. And Gary looked at that and just said, that's completely stupid.
Stupid. That's how the entire industry had worked for 50 years. It's a proven model.
It was proven for a different medium. He argued that on a scrolling Facebook feed, nobody cares about your cinematic production value if the content isn't relevant right now. He pushed for volume and speed over perfection.
So instead of one $2 million video,
let's make $1,000 videos or $210,000 videos. Let's test them all. Let's see what people actually click on, what they share, and then let's put the real money behind the winner.
It's the Google AdWords strategy all over again. Test cheap, find the winner, and then scale it.
That's all it is. It was a newsroom approach to advertising. If something happened in pop culture that morning, say an awards show or a big sports game, Vaynermedia wanted their clients tweeting and posting about it by noon.
And the big agencies just couldn't move that fast.
They were buried in legal approvals and endless meetings. Vaynermedia was built for speed, for the pace of the internet, not the pace of television.
And the growth was, again, just massive. By 2016, what are the numbers? They're grossing $100 million in revenue.
$100 million. And they have 600 employees. Ad Age, which is the industry Bible, puts them on their coveted A-list of top agencies. He had proven that tweets and posts were actually a 9-figure industry.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. Beyond just the agency's success, it's the structure he built around it.
You're talking about VaynerX.
Exactly. Vaynermedia is just the agency. It sits under this bigger holding company called VaynerX. And this is where you see his ambition to be more than just a guy who provides a service.
Right, because at the end of the day, an agency is a service business. You have clients, and clients can fire you. It's a constant grind for a new business.
So he started building his own media properties. He didn't want to just buy ads on other people's platforms. He wanted to own the platforms.
That's where the Gallery comes in, which later became Gallery Media Group. And this is the part of the company that houses publishers like Pure Wow.
Which is a huge women's lifestyle site.
Huge. Right. And 1E37 PMA, which is more of a men's lifestyle and culture brand focused on, crypto, sports cards, that sort of thing.
So why do that? Why own the magazine and the ad agency? It seems like two different businesses.
It's all about control. And data. If you own the media company, like PureWow, you own the audience data. You know exactly what articles women aged 25 to 45 are reading, what products they are clicking on, what content they are sharing with their friends.
Uh,
So you can then take that real-time data, walk it over to the VaynerMedia side of the office, and tell your client, Pepsi or Toyota or whoever, hey, we know with certainty what content works right now because we see it performing on our own platform.
mhm.
It creates this incredible feedback loop that other agencies just didn't have.
That is actually brilliant. It's like vertical integration for the attention economy.
That's a perfect way to put it. And having that machine, that confidence, it gave him the platform to start spinning out other businesses. This is where we get into the full-blown serial entrepreneur phase of his career.
And let's start with Resi, because I, like a lot of people, use Resi to book dinner reservations all the time. I remember when it launched, it felt like this cool niche app for foodies in New York and LA. I had absolutely no idea Gary Vaynerchuk was a co-founder. It doesn't seem like his world.
He co-founded it with Ben Leventhal, who was a founder of Eater. And again, you have to ask the question, why? Why does a social media guy care about the restaurant reservation business?
I'm going to guess it's about data.
It's always about data and friction. He saw that the simple act of booking a table at a good restaurant was a major friction point for consumers. You had to call, they'd put you on hold, they'd say, we're booked. OpenTable was the big giant in the space, but their software felt clunky and old.
It was built for desktops, not phones.
Right. Resi was mobile first, it was slick, and it specifically catered to the cool, high-demand restaurants that didn't want to be on OpenTable.
So it was another arbitrage. It was an arbitrage on the dining experience itself.
And it paid off, big time. American Express acquired Resi in 2019. The exact terms weren't disclosed, but the deal was significant enough to really validate him in the tech world. He wasn't just a marketer anymore. He was a legitimate tech founder with a major successful exit to a blue-chip company.
And then, almost immediately after that, he goes full circle. He goes back to the bottle.
Back to wine, yeah. With Empathy Wines.
But this time, it was a totally different model.
Totally different. He looked at the wine industry and saw that the core problem was still distribution. In the United States, wine distribution is a complete nightmare. It's a mandatory 3-tier system that was set up after Prohibition.
Right. It goes from the winery to a distributor to a retailer, and then finally to you, the customer.
And every single one of them takes a big cut, a big margin.
Which is why a decent bottle of wine costs $20, but often tastes like it should have cost $5.
That is exactly why. Empathy Wines was designed to break that model. It was direct-to-consumer, DTC. He sourced high-quality grapes from top farmers in California who often had excess supply arbitrage again. And he sold the finished wine directly to his followers online.
Cutting out the distributor and the retailer.
Completely. So he could sell what was essentially a $50 quality wine for $20 and still make a better profit margin than the traditional wineries.
And the brilliant part is, because he already had this massive audience from his social media presence, he didn't have to pay for advertising. He just posted a video saying, hey guys, I made a new wine, and his followers bought it.
His customer acquisition cost was basically zero. That is the absolute holy grail for any DTC business. And of course, the big guys noticed. Constellation Brands, one of the largest alcohol companies in the entire world, they saw this incredibly efficient model, and they just bought the whole company in 2020.
Okay, so just to recap, he's conquered wine twice. He's conquered the ad world. He's conquered restaurant tech. So now we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the JPEGs,
Web3.
NFTs.
I'm going to play the skeptic here for our listeners, because when the whole NFT craze hit, it really felt like a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of hype. And then suddenly there's Gary drawing these little stick figures, calling them VFriends, and selling them for thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. So was this just a cash grab? Because from the outside, it looked like he was monetizing his fan base's loyalty in a very, very aggressive way.
And that is a very fair criticism. A lot of people made that exact point at the time. But if you look at the actual structure of the VFriends project, he was trying to do something fundamentally different than just selling digital art. He attached utility to every single token.
Okay, explain utility in this context, because that word was thrown around a lot.
So if you bought a VFriend NFT, it wasn't just a digital picture of, say, an empathetic elephant. It was a smart contract that also acted as a ticket.
A ticket to what? Holding that specific token gave you a 3-year admission pass to his big super conference, VCon. So the art was a collectible, but the token itself unlocked a real-world experience.
So it's basically a conference ticket that you can hold as an asset and then resell on an open market.
Precisely. And because it's all on the blockchain, if you sell your ticket, your NFT to someone else for a profit, the original creator, in this case Gary, automatically gets a small royalty percentage of that secondary sale. He was trying to demonstrate a whole new business model for artists, musicians, and creators.
Okay, so the argument is, don't just look at the cute drawing. Look at the mechanics of the smart contract underneath it.
Right. His big bet was that smart contracts are the next email, the next AdWords, the next big platform shift. And he wanted to be first. He wanted to learn by doing. And the market, at least for a time, responded in a huge way. He did a collaboration with another project called Doodles that ended up selling at a Christie's auction.
A real-world, established auction house.
Yes. We're talking about serious institutional money coming in and validating this new space.
But let's be honest, the market crashed hard. A lot of people who bought NFTs, maybe even VFriends, lost a lot of money.
They absolutely did. And that is the inherent risk of following a futurist. If you buy into the arbitrage too early, or more likely, you buy in at the absolute peak of the hype cycle, you can get badly burned. Now, to his credit, Gary has always been very vocal about this. He's on record saying 99% of all NFT projects are going to go to zero. But that doesn't really comfort the person who bought a token at the top of the market and saw its value collapse.
No.
And this is where that guru status he has gets really tricky. Because when people start to follow your financial moves, they share in your wins, but they also have to share in your losses.
That transitions us perfectly then to the content machine. Because none of these businesses, not the wine, not the agency, not the NFTs, none of it works without his unbelievable ability to command attention. The man is everywhere. I open LinkedIn, he's there. I open TikTok, he's there. YouTube, Twitter, it's endless. How does one human being produce this much stuff?
He doesn't. He has a big team, and more importantly, he has a system. It's a system he calls the content pyramid, and it's actually something that's really actionable for anyone listening right now.
Okay, please, break it down for me. Because I struggle to post, like, one good tweet a week.
It's pretty simple, conceptually. It all starts with one piece of pillar content.
Pillar content.
Yeah, that's the big thing at the top of the pyramid. It could be a long-form keynote speech he gives, or a podcast interview he does, or one of his long vlogs. Let's say he gives a 1-hour speech on the future of marketing. That speech is the pillar.
Okay, so he does the heavy lifting just once.
Right. Then his content team takes that 1-hour video, and they just chop it up. They'll go through it and find the 5 funniest jokes he told, the 10 smartest business insights, the 3 most controversial statements. Then they turn those little moments into 30 or 40 short vertical clips for TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts.
Wow. So 1 hour of work becomes, what, 40 or 50 individual pieces of content?
Easily. And that's just the video. Then they take the audio from the speech and they release it as a podcast episode. Then they get the entire speech transcribed and they turn the best parts into LinkedIn articles or long-form tweets.
And I've seen them take a single quote, put it over a picture of his face, and post that on Instagram.
Exactly. One single keynote speech can fuel all of his social media channels for an entire week. It's just maximum efficiency.
It's the volume strategy we talked about with VaynerMedia. He's just applying it to his own personal brand.
He is practicing exactly what he preaches. And you should notice, too, the distinct flavors of his different content shows over the years. They each served a purpose. Daily V, for example, was a documentary series.
It was like reality TV for entrepreneurs.
It was. It showed the grind, sleeping on planes, eating bad airport food, having stressful meetings at VaynerMedia. It was specifically designed to show his audience that he wasn't just some talking head who gives advice. It showed the work.
And then you had hashtag AskGaryV.
Right, and that was a pure Q&A show. That was all about community engagement. He would source questions directly from his followers on Twitter and Instagram and answer them on video. That show actually became so popular that it was turned into one of his best-selling books.
Let's talk about the books, because he's written a whole shelf full of them. And I think the titles themselves, if you look at them in order, they tell a really interesting story about how his own philosophy has shifted over time.
They absolutely do. The timeline of his books perfectly mirrors the maturity of the internet economy itself.
Okay, so you start in 2009 with Crush It.
Crush It. That was the original manifesto. The subtitle was, Why Now Be is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion. And you have to remember the context. It came out in 2009, right on the heels of the massive financial crash.
People were desperate. They were losing their jobs.
They were desperate. And he was coming in with this message saying, the gatekeepers are gone. The internet is here. Start a blog about what you love, work harder than everyone else, and you will win. It was pure, raw, unapologetic aggression.
Then you get into the more tactical stuff, like jab, 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 right hook.
Which is still, in my personal opinion, his best pure business book. The entire thesis is right there in the title. Give value, give value, give value. Those are the jab. And only then do you ask for the sale, which is the right hook.
Hmm.
Most businesses just throw right hooks all day. Buy my stuff, here's a coupon. He explained very clearly that on social media, you have to earn the right to sell to somebody.
But then more recently, the whole tone of the book's changed. It got softer. In 2021, he released a book called 12 and a Half.
This was a massive pivot, a huge one. The subtitle is Leveraging the Emotional Ingredients Necessary for Business Success. We are not talking about crushing it anymore. We're talking about empathy, kindness, self-awareness, curiosity, gratitude.
So what prompted the shift? Did he just get soft in his older age? Or did he realize that hustle culture, the very thing he helped create, was becoming toxic?
I think he absolutely read the room. The whole hustle porn era, where founders would brag about sleeping only 4 hours a night, that was facing a massive cultural backlash.
People were burning out.
People were burning out. And the Gary Vee character was, frankly, becoming a bit of a villain in that narrative. 12 and a Half was his direct attempt to add nuance to his own message. He started arguing that you can work incredibly hard without being miserable or being a terrible boss. He started talking about things like kind candor.
Kind candor. I like that phrase.
It's a great phrase. It basically means you have to be able to tell people the hard truth, firing someone, giving critical feedback, but you have to learn how to do it from a place of kindness and respect without being a jerk. It was an attempt to merge that hard-nosed businessman persona with a more modern, emotionally intelligent leader.
But let's be real. The criticism has not gone away. There are plenty of people, as noted in our sources, who still view him as a snake oil salesman.
Yes. And it's important that we really apply some critical thinking here and analyze why. The term snake oil implies you're selling a cure that doesn't actually work.
Right.
The criticism of Gary usually fall into two main buckets. The first one is what's called survivorship bias.
Okay, explain that.
The critics will say, okay, Gary, you made it. That's great for you. But for every one of you, there are 10,000 kids who listened to your advice, dropped out of college to build their personal brand, and ended up completely broke.
That's a very valid point. The odds are not in your favor.
Yeah.
Not everyone can be a media mogul.
It's a totally fair point. The second main criticism is about the productization of self. And the question is this: is he selling actionable business advice, or is he selling the feeling of being successful?
Ooh, that's a good distinction.
Think about it. When you watch a Gary Vee video, you get a little dopamine hit. You feel motivated, you feel energized. But after that 10 minutes, did you actually learn how to read a balance sheet? Or did you just feel good for a little while?
It's the idea of entrepreneurship. People who are addicted to consuming content about business instead of actually doing the business.
Exactly. And to be fair, Gary would argue that he puts out thousands of hours of free tactical content so you can do the business. He would say, I gave you the entire blueprint for free. Don't blame me if you didn't build the house. But that critique remains. Does his high-energy style accidentally attract people who are looking for a magic bullet, even though he explicitly says over and over that there are no shortcuts?
And yet, despite the critics, his ambition hasn't slowed down one bit. He still talks constantly about his ultimate goal, buying the New York Jets.
That is the North Star. That's the end goal of all of this. He's a die-hard, lifelong Jets fan, and he has said publicly for years that his entire career, all of these businesses, they are just a mechanism to accumulate enough capital to one day buy the team.
You know, it's almost a protective mechanism, isn't it? As long as he hasn't bought the Jets yet, he's still on the journey. He hasn't truly won the game yet.
That's a great psychological insight. I think you're right. If he actually buys the Jets tomorrow, what's left? The game is over. By keeping that goal so impossibly high, he ensures that the hunger never goes away.
So we've covered a lot of ground. The immigrant hustle, the wine empire, the ad agency dominance, the tech exits, the NFTs, the books, the philosophy. For the listener who is maybe sitting in a cubicle right now or maybe trying to run a small business, what is the actual practical takeaway here beyond just the you can do it cheerleading?
If you strip everything else away, the single biggest takeaway is adaptation. Just look at the timeline one last time.
Okay.
1998, email is the new undervalued asset. He goes all in. 2006, YouTube is the new undervalued asset. He goes all in. 2011, corporate social media is the asset. He builds an entire agency around it. 2021, Web3 and NFTs are the new frontier. He builds VFriends.
He never fell in love with the medium.
Never. He didn't say, I'm a newsletter guy or I'm a YouTuber. He said, I am a trader of attention.
That's the key. Don't fall in love with your tools,
Mhm.
because the tools always, always change.
The tools always change. The consumer behavior changes. The platforms change. The only thing that stays the same is that people are paying attention to something. And your job, whether you are selling wine or widgets or just yourself, is to find out where those eyes are going before the price of admission goes up.
And to not be afraid to look a little bit stupid while you're doing it. I mean, he looked ridiculous spitting wine into a bucket in 2006. He looked ridiculous to a lot of people talking about cartoon NFTs in 2020.
Being willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time is an absolute superpower in business. He was willing to be the crazy wine guy for years until suddenly he was the genius marketing guy.
Before we wrap this up, I want to leave the listeners with a final thought. Something for them to chew on that maybe isn't in the books or the speeches.
I have one. It's a question, really, for you to consider. We've established that Gary Vaynerchuk is an absolute master of content. He meticulously documents his life in order to sell his businesses and his philosophy.
Right.
But at this point in his career, you have to ask yourself, is the business driving the content, or is the content now the actual business?
Wait, what do you mean by that?
I mean, does VaynerMedia primarily exist to serve clients like PepsiCo? Or does it exist to provide the perfect backdrop for Gary's content about being a CEO? Has he productized his own life so effectively that the story of him doing business has become more valuable than the business itself?
That is a real Inception-level thought. Is he a businessman who is playing a character on the internet? Or is he a character on the internet who is playing a businessman?
Or perhaps in the modern attention economy, there really is no difference between the two anymore.
On that bombshell, we are going to sign off. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Now stop watching us and go spot some arbitrage.
See you next time.